So a brand new, huge city builder drops. We're talking about Anno 117, Pax Romana, which just came out on November 13th.
The big one.
Yeah, and you'd think the big online debate would be about, server crashes or maybe a game-breaking bug.
Something that actually stops you from playing.
Right, but instead the forums just exploded over one tiny, almost invisible thing
Yeah, as I said.
well, that's missing. The farm workers.
That's exactly it. And you shared a really great source with us, a huge Reddit thread just digging into this. So for our deep dive today, we're going to unpack that one seemingly small complaint. Why are the fields empty?
Because it's about so much more than just a missing animation.
Oh, absolutely. It touches on this tension between what players expect, historical realism in a Roman setting, and, the very real pressures of game development, especially when you're following up a game like Anno 1800.
It's the flashpoint for everything. It's atmosphere versus optimization, and it even gets into some surprisingly deep historical territory.
It really does. Because when you build your perfect Roman farm, you expect to see life. You expect to see the simulation working.
And instead, you see these beautiful, pristine fields with nothing. No people, no carts, just silence.
Which for a dedicated fan base is a huge red flag.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the very simple request that kicked the whole thing off.
The original post was so direct, it was just, bring back the field workers.
That's it. Players just logged in, looked at their farms, and went, wait a minute. The fields are totally empty of any animated people.
And because it's the internet and we're talking about Rome, the meme started instantly.
Of course.
The top comment was something like, the developers kept it empty so Russell Crowe could walk through with his hands touching the wheat.
The scene from Gladiator, which immediately led to the next comment being, are you not entertained?
Right. And the answer from the community was a very clear, no, actually, we are not entertained by these sterile fields.
The joke is funny, but the criticism underneath it is, pretty serious. For longtime Anno fans, this feels like a huge step backward.
A feature regression is what they're calling it. And they're right to, because players were so quick to point out that even Anno 1602...
Which came out almost 30 years ago.
Exactly. 30 years ago, that game had a little person you could see harvesting the crops and replanting. The expectation for a 2025 game to have that detail is, it's totally reasonable.
And what makes it even weirder is this little hidden detail someone found.
So the third-person view.
Yeah. So even though there are no workers, you can press, Ctrl plus Shift plus R.
That's the one. It's an unadvertised Easter egg. It drops you into a third-person camera, and you can just walk around your city.
So you can literally be your own sad Roman, walking alone through your empty wheat fields. It's just so bizarre. Why put resources into that feature, but cut the one thing that makes the fields feel alive?
It makes me think the cut was either a last-minute decision or purely technical.
Okay, so that's where it gets really interesting. If the detail was in older games, and this new game is built on the 1800 engine, why skip it now? Why cut this specific corner?
The community came up with three main theories, and they all kind of boil down to development resources.
Okay.
So first, it's just cutting corners on dev time. Second, that the game feels half-baked and probably need another 6 months.
And the third?
Optimization, that they cut the animations just to save CPU cycles.
And there were reports from people who played the demo. Right, they said they saw farm workers in the demo build.
They did. Which really supports the idea that this was a late-stage cut, either a bug they couldn't fix in time or, a last-minute performance tweak right before launch.
So let's lean into that optimization theory for a second. Why would a few tiny farmers be so expensive for a modern computer to handle?
It's a great question. It's not just about drawing a person. When you have potentially thousands of tiny moving things on screen, the system is juggling a few key things: draw calls, pathfinding, and physics.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, think of a building as one big brushstroke for the computer. One draw call. Easy. But 1,000 farmers, all moving on their own paths. That's 1,000 tiny brushstrokes, all recalculating their position constantly so they don't walk through a wall.
The pathfinding.
Exactly. That logic, especially across a huge city with fields and roads, is just relentless on the CPU. And if you're a player who likes to run the game on fast forward,
It gets even worse.
it consumes your CPU. So getting rid of all those little farmer animations is maybe a cynical, but an easy way to claw back 5, maybe 10% of your CPU load.
That makes the trade-off a lot clearer. But no matter the reason, the effect on the players is the same. The consensus is that Anno 117 just feels less alive than 1800.
And that complaint about the atmosphere connects to this bigger debate about content regression. The missing farmers are like the poster child for a larger issue.
Right, because it's not just the farmers. Players are pointing to other big features from 1800 that are just gone.
Precisely. Take the museum or the zoo. In Anno 1800, those were core gameplay loops right from the start.
You'd collect artifacts on expeditions and complete sets for these huge bonuses.
Huge island-wide bonuses. It was this amazing system that blended aesthetics with real strategic depth. And in 117, that whole layer of the endgame is just missing from the base game. It's less atmosphere and less to do.
Okay, we have to talk about the elephant in the Roman Forum.
Right.
Because as soon as people started asking, who are the workers? The conversation got tangled up in the history of, well, slavery.
It was inevitable.
A lot of players just assumed the developers cut the workers to avoid having to depict slavery.
And this is where the Reddit thread actually got really nuanced and impressive. The source reminds us that, yes, slavery was a huge part of the Roman economy. One user cited a figure that at one point, 40% of the population of Roman Italy were slaves.
So if you were going for pure realism, the fields would probably be full of them.
It would. But the thread also brought up all these crucial counter-arguments.
Right, showing that it was more complex than just that.
Exactly. I mean, the community was citing the facts. You had free Roman farmers, the plebeians who worked their own land. You had retired soldiers who were given land as payment. Caesar giving land after the Gaul campaign was the example used.
And the game itself reflects this, right? The lowest population tier is called Liberius.
Which means recently freed slaves. So the game's own mechanics acknowledge this complex social structure.
But then it gets even more complicated. Another user pointed out that even those retired soldiers with their new land would often still need some slaves for big jobs, like harvesting olives.
It's historically messy. It's not a simple picture, which you could argue is maybe why the developers just chose to show nothing instead.
But here's the thing that doesn't add up for me. The franchise has dealt with this before. Anno 1800 had New World plantations and characters who were former slaves.
George Smith, yeah.
But this new game, 117, apparently has a character named Ben Bellion, who is described as the first person being enslaved during gameplay. So if the story is willing to tackle it that directly.
Why be squeamish about showing a generic worker in a field who could be anyone? A free man, a freedman, anyone.
Exactly. The contradiction is what the community really zeroed in on. If it's not a moral or aesthetic choice, it just pushes the explanation back toward the most likely reason.
It was technical. It was an optimization cut. They weighed the CPU cost against the effort, and the farmers lost.
And there's this one tiny detail that shows they did their homework even if they cut the visuals.
Oh, this is my favorite part. The Pileus hat.
Tell us about it.
It's a base need for that lowest population tier, the Liberius. The Pileus was the actual historical hat worn by freed Roman slaves. It was a symbol of their manumission.
So the developers researched and implemented that detail into the game's mechanics, which just makes the visual emptiness of the fields even more jarring.
It does. It shows the player base is just hyper-focused on these details that blend realism with aesthetics. And the workers aren't the only thing they're debating.
Oh, no. Let's talk about the fences.
The fences. Another huge debate. The complaint is that fields of the same crop type don't connect. They have these jagged stone walls between every single plot.
And it ruins the look if you're trying to build, these huge, sweeping fields of wheat.
So you have the realism camp saying, well, historically those walls were used for property lines, or to keep animals out, or even for water runoff.
But the other side, the aesthetics camp, is saying it just looks awful and goes against the spirit of Anno as a beautiful city builder.
And the consensus there seems to be, just give us a toggle. Let us choose between patchwork fields or big connected ones. Let both sides be happy.
And then there's my absolute favorite niche complaint, the one about the height of the wheat.
It's just incredible. Players notice the wheat is too short for the Roman era.
Which sounds insane, but they're right.
They're absolutely right. The community pointed out that wheat back then, before centuries of selective breeding, was at least chest high. Modern wheat is knee-high because we've genetically modified it.
We bred it to put more energy into the grain, not the stalk.
Exactly. Using things like growth-limiting hormones,
Yeah.
we made it short and stocky so it wouldn't fall over in the wind. So when a player complains about short wheat, they're not just asking for historical buildings. They are, in a way, asking for historical genetics.
That's the level of immersion this fan base expects. It's just fascinating.
It is.
So what does this all mean then? This one tiny request, bring back the workers, It just rips open all these layers of discussion.
It really does. It's about history, it's about game development, and it's about this relationship between a game and the atmosphere it's trying to create.
Mm,
Those missing people, they break the illusion.
they break the spell.
Perfectly put. And it shows that the player base, while incredibly loyal, is also comparing this brand new launch to the final, fully patched version of Anno 1800.
A game that's had 6 years of DLC and support.
Exactly. So 117 might get there, it might even be better one day, but at launch, it feels half-baked because the expectations are just so incredibly high.
The whole discussion, from the empty fields to the short wheat, it just proves that players value that visual immersion, that atmosphere, sometimes more than anything else, more than a few extra frames per second.
Yeah, that seems to be the message.
So if a developer saves CPU cycles by removing the farmers, where do you draw the line? I mean, what's the difference between necessary optimization and just slowly eroding the life of the simulation you're trying to build? What other small details are you, the player, willing to lose for performance, and at what point does the world just start to feel empty? That's the question I think every strategy fan has to ask now.